With housing prices so high, it's harder for first-time home buyers to qualify for a mortgage. But there are 5 government programs that can help. Then probate fees can add up fast. Learn how to reduce or eliminate them altogether. And we all age, but some appear to do so more gracefully than others. Find out how you can too. All this and more today on The Wealthy Life. Welcome to The Wealthy Life. With housing prices so high, it's harder for first-time home buyers to qualify for a mortgage. Joining us now are mortgage brokers Kelly Curtis and Bobby Smart to share some fabulous tips on how to leverage government programs to buy your first home. Bobby, Kelly, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So Kelly, let's start with, what do lenders look for before deciding to give people some money?
Well, there's a lot of factors, but I think there's 3 main ones. I'd say income. Obviously, you need a job, and that would be a salaried job if you're self-employed, if you get child support or alimony, those kinds of things, but you're going to need some income. Obviously, with house prices in Victoria and on the island, the higher the income, the more you're going to qualify for. Credit is another big thing. I mean, when we pull your credit bureau, we know what kind of debts you have. If you've got car loans, if you've got credit cards, those all come into play. And you want to monitor your credit pretty closely if you're looking to get into the housing market, because you want your credit score to be high when you apply for a mortgage. And I think the last thing would be down payment. And there's minimum down payments for certain programs, but I think the bigger the down payment, like income, the more you're going to qualify for. And your down payment can come from your savings, it can come from your investments, it could be gifted from a family member, or it could even be borrowed if you qualify for it.
Now, there are some government programs that can help. Bobby, what are some of those that pop to mind?
Well, a benefit would be the property transfer tax exemption. So when you're purchasing a home, there is part of your closing costs is having to pay for property transfer tax, and the government has stepped in to try and alleviate some of those closing costs for first-time home buyers and on new construction.
Hey, every dollar adds up. Kelly, what are some other programs that people can tap into?
So we've got the RRSP program where you can take up to $35,000 out of your RRSP program. It's one of my favorite programs because both borrowers, if you have 2, can both take out up to $35,000. You take that money out tax-free, and you have 15 years to repay it back. And you can use that money towards anything as long as you're purchasing the house. So it doesn't have to be directly for the down payment. It could be to buy the furniture for the house. And then there's the new program that just came out in 2023, the First Time Home Buyer Savings Plan, which is more like a TFSA. And clients can they can invest up to $8,000 per year to a maximum of $40,000. And when they take that money out, it's tax-free. And when it gets put in, it's tax deductible. And now they're allowing you to do both programs together. So that could give you up to $75,000 of down payment money for you to go in and purchase.
Wow, you know, when you add up all these programs together, it's pretty attractive. You save property purchase tax, you can tap into your RSP, you can use the First Time Home Savers account to start saving up more money, tax-free. Sounds good. What other tax benefits might be applicable to first-time home buyers?
Yes, the federal government has offered to help with the closing costs of purchasing a home, and there's a $1,500, up to $1,500 amount that they can claim on their taxes as a tax benefit.
Oh, that's fantastic. All of this adds up. Mm-hmm. Any final tips for first-time home buyers out there, Kelly?
I think the biggest one would be, if you're in the market for a new home, get pre-qualified. Go talk to a mortgage broker. You can get pre-qualified and get a rate held for up to 120 days. So that gives you lots of time to find a house and close and within that time period.
And then you know how much you can spend when you go shopping.
Absolutely, that's key.
Kelly, Bobby, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Don't go away. Learn how to avoid probate fees after the break. Probate fees can add up on a large estate, but they can be minimized or avoided altogether with some proactive planning. However, in some situations, paying probate fees is actually a good thing. Joining us now is estate planning specialist Jessica Lowe to share how and when to reduce probate fees. Jessica, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sybil. Happy to be here.
Well, Jessica, let's start with the obvious question. What is probate?
Yeah, probate is a court process that an executor typically needs to go through before they can actually begin doing their job of administering the estate. And as part of completing this process, the estate will need to pay probate fees on the estate assets.
Okay, and how are those fees calculated?
Well, it depends on what province or territory you live in. Some provinces like BC, Ontario, and Nova Scotia have the highest rate of probate fees, and it's a percentage of the estate assets. And so right here in BC, probate fees are roughly 1.4% of the estate assets.
Okay, so on a $1 million estate, a $14,000 fee roughly may apply. How can people reduce or avoid that fee?
Right. Well, before I talk about that, we should still, of course, bear in mind that even though we might want to save a bit on probate fees, something like 1.4% is a relatively small percentage in the grand scheme of things, which is why we should never let the desire to avoid probate fees drive our estate planning, because taking the pros and cons into consideration, sometimes the most appropriate planning just means that probate fees will eventually need to be paid. But under the right circumstances, using a particular tool to reduce some of those probate fees payable might be a wise part of the overall estate plan.
So let's jump into some of those ways people can save.
So, first way that someone could consider avoiding or reducing some of the probate fees payable would be to see if there are any assets that can be designated to go directly to a beneficiary without needing to pass through the estate.
Yeah, like an RSP account you appoint a beneficiary on.
Exactly. So some of the most common assets that you could do this with would be life insurance or registered assets. So you said it, TFSAs, RSPs, and RIFs being some of the more common registered assets there.
Now, I think people need to be careful there, though, don't they? If you have two kids, a house and an RSP, and you leave the RSP to one and the house to the other, they may not end up with the same at the end of the day after taxes are factored in, correct?
That's right. So when using any kind of planning tool, it's important to have your lawyer look at the pros and the cons and potential pitfalls there so that that can be factored in. And it's really not just about using a singular tool or the will. It's really holistic when we're talking about estate planning.
Yeah, good, well said. So what's the second way?
The second way would be to consider if an asset can be held jointly with the intended beneficiary. However, unless this person is your spouse, there are so many pitfalls with this one, especially where people just go ahead and do this themselves without any legal and tax advice and without the proper documentation.
So at the end of the day, they may end up spending a lot more in other things like litigation or to creditors than they would ever save in probate fees.
So it might seem like a really easy thing to just go ahead and do yourself, but trust me that this can create a big legal mess and tax complication if it's not done properly.
Okay, so get some advice on that one before you take action.
Absolutely.
What's the other ways?
Third way is a special kind of trust planning that is available if you are 65 or older. You can potentially set up what's called an alter ego trust, or if you're planning together with your spouse, this is called a joint spousal trust or a joint partner trust. Our trust company is often appointed as a trustee on these kinds of trusts, and we see this used as a popular planning tool. And the idea is that you transfer your assets to the trust and continue to manage those as the initial trustee. And then, when your time comes, the next appointed trustee could step in and distribute those assets to your beneficiaries without needing a probate application. So no probate fees are payable.
Wonderful. What other tips do you have for us?
So another couple ways here. So if you're not quite 65 yet, but you own private company shares that are relatively significant in value, you might consider if you can do multiple wills planning in the meantime. And the basic idea of this one is that you have a will covering assets that need to go through probate, while you have a second will covering assets like your private company shares, which technically don't need to go through probate. So your estate can then avoid paying probate fees for the assets of that second will.
And Jessica, what's the one last tip you have to share with us today?
Lastly, and quite simply, if you have more than enough assets to take care of yourself, you can consider gifting assets from time to time instead of waiting until the very end. In this way, you would actually have the benefit of being able to see your loved ones appreciate and enjoy the gift, or being able to see your favorite charity put that to good use.
Oh, that's a happy one.
Yes, and this earlier gifting strategy would then also reduce the probate fees payable at the end of the day.
Jessica, this has been fabulous. It shows the importance that people need to work with a professional to map out their estate plan in advance. Thanks for being with us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And don't go away. Learn how to age gracefully when we return. Most of us hope to live a long life, but that doesn't mean we want to look like we're older than we feel. Joining us now is Dr. Carmel Anderson to share some tips on how to age gracefully on any budget. Dr. Anderson, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So what is the secret to aging gracefully?
Well, probably the number one tip that I could give anyone would be to wear sun protection.
Why is that so important?
That is so important because that is the number one factor that ages our skin.
So what happens when we don't wear sun protection? Like, what does our skin do?
What it does is it breaks down the collagen and elastin. It also stimulates inflammation, and all of those things contribute to dysregulation in pigment or color. They contribute to wrinkling and laxity and sagging.
Oh, well, that all sounds terrible. Now, back in the day, sunscreen wasn't as commonly used as it is now. And so I've got some of these age spots that are popping up all over the place. Is there any way to get rid of them after the fact?
For sure. We've got lots of devices. We have a device specifically for brown, but we also have things like the BBL that can help. The nice thing about BBL, it helps brown and red, as well as does some collagen stimulation.
Is there anything I can do myself at home, or does this require going in and getting some proper treatments done?
The BBL is a treatment. Broadband light is what it stands for. But the things you do at home, like I say, the most important would be the sunscreen, but what you can do at home is exercise, make sure you're hydrated, you can sleep well, and have good control of your stress.
Well, that's way easier said than done, isn't it?
So true.
Now, I personally find reducing stress, exercise, it's magic.
Totally.
You know, it just releases everything.
Yes. Now, exercise does more than that. It increases your circulation, and circulation is blood flowing, and blood brings healing, and healing is key to keeping your skin young.
How much water should you drink a day?
Your water, it varies a lot because it depends a lot on the exercise that you do. So probably minimum of 8 cups a day, but athletes will need, far more than that.
And it really does make a difference in terms of flushing out the toxins and keeping our skin looking fresh, doesn't it?
Well, it makes a difference in preventing dehydration, because dehydration definitely makes you look and feel older.
So what actually happens to the skin when we're dehydrated?
What people will look like who are dehydrated is they won't have tears. Their nose will be dry. Often their lips and their mucous membrane will be dry. Those are the major things. Then your skin gets dry as well.
And then it gets a little bit
crepey.
Yeah,
a little bit
crepey looking, maybe even a little bit red and blotchy.
It can,
yes.
Yeah, if it goes further, yeah.
And you're right when you talk about the skin, because it is the skin that makes us look younger or older.
Absolutely.
And so these brown spots, let's touch on the BBL treatment a little bit more so our viewers really understand what it means. How invasive is it?
It's not really invasive at all. It's basically just putting a broadband light on your skin. And in that sense, it reduces brown, red, and also helps collagen.
So would you call that a laser treatment?
Well, it's a light treatment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so any pain associated with that treatment?
A little bit.
Yeah.
It's a little bit hot. Yeah. It's
just
really
warm.
well tolerated. Yeah.
And what does it cost to get the treatment done?
It depends on where you go. It's a few $100s, but it would depend. And lots of people, they like the results, so they want to come for a few treatments.
Okay, so it's not just once and done?
Depends on your pigmentation and your redness.
So if you can get the pigmentation toned down, get rid of some of the spots with the treatment, and then lather up with sunscreen from there on in, you'll be in good shape?
Exactly.
Any other treatments you would suggest people to age gracefully?
Well, another one is a neuromodulator.
Oh, what's that? That sounds interesting.
Yeah. So the most common name for that is Botox.
Okay.
And basically, it's a molecule that relaxes muscle. And the wisdom of that is that when you have relaxed muscles, you'd be much less likely to form wrinkles that are permanent.
Oh, so the more we frown and wrinkle our forehead, the more likely those wrinkles are to stay?
Absolutely. So continuous muscle contraction, even strong intermittent, can cause thinning of the skin at the bottom of the wrinkle. And then that becomes permanent.
So is there any secrets to relaxing your muscles naturally?
Well, I would say be happy and don't stress. Those are the big things.
So then what was the name of the treatment again?
Neuromodulator.
Okay, so to get that treatment done, how expensive is it?
It depends, and it's around probably $400 or $500 an area.
Okay,
Yeah.
So an area might be like the forehead, or what other
That's
areas
right.
do
The
people?
frown, the crow's feet.
Okay, so if you're getting multiple areas done, then it's going to add up.
Well, it gets cheaper as you get more areas done. You don't double the price. They add a little bit more on.
And how long does it last?
It lasts around 4 months.
And then you've got to go back and get it done again.
Yeah. So 3 to 6 months is.
Now, sometimes, you see people that have maybe had too much work done. That I wouldn't consider aging gracefully because it's obvious. What are some tips you have to avoid looking overdone?
Very good point. I think the key to that is going to a trusted practitioner who knows what they're doing. Almost no one likes to look made up.
No. Any final tips for our viewers today on looking their best?
Well, see a skin specialist and get a consultation.
Dr. Anderson, it was fabulous having you with us today.
My pleasure.
Don't go away. Find out how to better align your finances with your partner after the break. Welcome back. Thanks for your emails and social media messages. We love hearing from our viewers. Today's question is from Darcy. Dear Sybil, my partner and I handle money very differently, which creates some frustration and arguments. We love each other, but money is straining our relationship. Do you have any tips to help us align our money beliefs? With thanks, Darcy. Well, Darcy, this is a very common issue between couples. And my hunch is that one of you is more disciplined than the other, which can create some friction. The good news is you can align your goals and make money fun. Where I suggest you start is having an open conversation. What do you both want to spend money on? Have some fun with it. Start with the easy stuff. Maybe you want to go on a dream vacation together. Maybe you want to save for a down payment on a house, pay off debt, or plan a blissful retirement, walking the beach in the sunset. If you get excited about those goals together, you'll be more inclined to stick to it. But then there's the day-to-day expenses, and this is where problems typically occur. you need to set a budget together. Write down all the things that you're spending money on today and be honest with one another. Don't hide anything. If you hide things, it's going to create more friction and distrust. If having the conversation about budget and where your money is going creates some conflict, think about inviting a friend or an objective third party or even a mediator into the discussion to help you both feel heard and to stay on track. Now, if one of you is better at planning than the other and a little more disciplined, maybe assign the expense management role to that person. You both need to know what's going on, but having one take control or more control of the finances sometimes helps. And the last thing I want to suggest is maybe consider having separate bank accounts. You each have your paychecks coming into your own accounts. Then you set up a joint account and transfer money into that account every month to pay all your common expenses. By having a separate account, you each have some money to spend on things that you want to spend on without feeling guilty. Hopefully that'll help you guys get on track and stay together. And that wraps up this edition of The Wealthy Life, helping you make smart financial decisions. Join the Wealthy Life Club and you'll get access to everything you need to live your version of the wealthy life.